Hello. I'm making a new project and I'm interested in seeing, getting like a first response from other people and figuring out like where I'm missing logic. So I've written a program in my head for, maybe 4 years now. And every time I write it, it's not the same. So the the way to think about it is sort of like a C++ program. And then you have words. So in a C++ program, or generally usual programs, they don't live in multiple executables with different names. And so the concept of this program is it's like an ecosystem. It's a bunch of the same source code running under different names, and then you execute the names to give it meaning. So it kind of like networks and figures out, like sort of like English. Like if you look at in anything written, you somehow there's a tally in your brain that's accumulating this or that, and you have some sort of neurology, and I want to explore that. So the neurology that we have in our brains made to understand English put into a program in probably C++ ran from probably 4,000 different locations, and something in between in the middle where you say, well, you want to write something to the disk, you want to read something from here, you want to load these images, you want to make a video, like what can you do? So once you break it into this other like abstraction layer and you say, well, load this video, make it 3 humanoids, load them into the center space in between where the program's actually running, and then figure out where they moved, and then suddenly you start realizing, oh, there's intelligence in this program. So that's kind of what we want to make. We want to make like AI, essentially. So AI usually runs on one data set, and you run it through a few places, and then you accumulate the where the synapses connect, and you build some sort of scoring mechanism. So that has to exist somewhere in here. So like that's kind of what I want to start building out. So the first thing I was thinking about is blockchain. So like you should be able to make a blockchain with it. So you would use something like a singular store, and then you'd use a mathematical model around where you store the data. In blockchain, it's called blocks. So in this, there's no chain of events yet. We have to figure out what comes first and then second. There's got to be some sort of like linear scope of running depending on what you're doing or what you accessed using the executables. So you're like writing into it's kind of English or Latin, and then you say, load this, start this engine, and it does like some sort of loop. I'm thinking like a supercomputer, kind of. Like if you took blockchain and then you took Dash, and then you take the masternode system, which is essentially a cryptographic bond, and then you associate funds with a server, then suddenly you start paying for servers, and then you have 5,000, 10,000 Xeons or something. And then now you have a substantial amount of processing power similar to what a supercomputer would run. You can start actually doing hardware too. So like, let's say we have 5,000 computers and then we make silicon, and then you have a peripheral. Now you have 5,000 peripherals running some like bytecode based off of what we were doing in the middle a whole lot. You start breaking that apart, and then you have clustering nodes. So you can do like an Ethereum sort of gas model and start like pre-processing some of the stuff, caching, do multiple layers, and then finally get out to the Xeons, which are the supercomputer edge nodes, kind of like Tor connecting to an actual client. And then you step off into that, and then you get to the internet. So, well, what do we want to be able to do? Well, I want to be able to make websites. I want to be able to do things like calculus, linear algebra. I want to be able to do multiple dimensional physics. I want to be able to like if there's one electron and we want to actually like figure out how it would look to simulate it, like that's the sort of thing I think this would be really good at. And then you can run all sorts of processing and have like just unfathomable about amounts of processing power to do, like the next Pixar movie or anything you can imagine. So it starts off with some sort of program where you're breaking it apart and then you run logical circuits essentially of these like little programs, and then you start learning about what the project can do. So the first order of business is, does anyone think this is an interesting idea? And could we go ahead and start like messing around in Slack and getting some code together? I'm very excited about seeing what other programmers do. That was kind of the point of me not programming it, like just running the loop over and over again, because I want to see like the brain power of people that come aboard that just get the first initial scope of this new project and then start coding. And if I could get 100 of those people and then all have them code from this standpoint where they're not looking at my old source code, and they all write something out of scope with each other even, and then let's branch those, put those together, add like a networking preprocessor, and then you start having like different logical engines even. I mean, I'm assuming that the people who come up with different ideas about how this would work have like a different endpoint, and we want to actually figure out what all of those endpoints are and start accumulating some of like, let's call this engine A, let's call this engine B, and then you start getting the scopes together. We actually start making like the internal engine, or the the network controller. So um, really interesting conversation. I'm really happy to see where it goes, and let's uh, let's get in the comment section below and let's figure out another place and let's start networking and let's get at it. Okay, it's been fun.